Hello and welcome to our special live coverage of the joint press conference following the summit between President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. President Lee arrived in Tokyo today for the first time since taking office in early June, and the visit comes ahead of his trip to Washington, where he will sit down for talks with U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, while we wait for that joint press conference to begin, here in the studio I have Dr. Kim Mi-kyung, senior researcher at Gyeongsang National University. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I also have Professor Yang Hee-dong, Professor of Business Administration at Ewha Women's University. Professor Yang, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Dr. Kim, I want to start with you. We just saw President Lee and Prime Minister Ishiba delivering their opening remarks ahead of their expanded talks. It seems the press conference is about to start. We'll come back right afterwards.
We
would like to begin the press conference by the two heads of the countries. Please be seated. First of all, Prime Minister Ishiba, and following that would be President Lee. We will first hear from Prime Minister Ishiba. We sincerely welcome President Lee Jae-myung's visit to Japan. After inauguration as the President of the Republic of Korea, his first visit being Japan is the first time ever since the normalization of the diplomatic ties. This year marks the 60th anniversary of normalization of the bilateral ties, and it is all the more meaningful and historical. The two countries, strategic surroundings for the two countries is becoming more difficult, and so the bilateral relations and trilateral relations are even more important. And we share this point together, and that is why I feel very assured. And that is why I welcome this shuttle diplomacy to begin. The two countries have accumulated many incidences of sharing and cooperation. And since we're neighboring countries, we do have some difficulties. However, we are going to be consistent. After the normalization of the ties in 1965, we have the foundations that are lying, and based on that, the two countries, we have agreed that we're going to advance greatly the bilateral ties. Today, with President Lee, we touched upon a broad range of issues like security, economy, and peace, and we have agreed that we are going to strengthen the strategic communications between the two countries. And the vice ministerial talks that will reassume early, and the frameworks that we have in place will be utilized, and from the perspective of the trilateral cooperation, we are going to strengthen our bilateral ties. And two countries have common societal and economic problems such as demographic changes and the societal changes. And to this end, we will share our wisdoms, and in order to find resolutions, we have agreed to establish a consultative body. For people-to-people exchange, it is already very brisk, but nevertheless, the working holiday policy, we have decided to start the working holiday policy for the young people. We have many areas to communicate, like hydrogen and ammonia, and we agreed that we are going to enhance the cooperation. And we also shared very candid opinions about the international politics, and I said that a change of circumstances by force is what we oppose to, and also how we will respond to North Korean issues like nuclear weapons. And to this end, our two countries and the three countries, including the U.S., we are going to stay very close in cooperation. In terms of abductees, for a immediate resolution, I thank President Lee that he supported on this. We go hand in hand together, and amidst this difficult international situations, as we are marking the 60th anniversary of the bilateral ties normalization, we will stay hand in hand and shoulder to shoulder to walk down the path where we both can strive. And today, the results of today's summit, we will release the press release afterwards. The 60th anniversary of the bilateral ties, I hope that with this summit, it will propel even further. Thank you. And we will now hear from President Lee Jae-myung. First of all, I would like to thank your warm hospitality that you showed to myself and my delegation. I thank the Prime Minister as well as the Japanese people. At the G7 summit, we had met for the first time, and in about 2 months' time, it is I feel very happy that I am meeting him again. In 1965, the normalization of the bilateral diplomatic ties, ever since then, the President of Republic of Korea has visited Japan for the first time as after inauguration, and I believe that this is showcasing how important we take Japan as our partner. After my inauguration, I have mentioned that we are neighbors that share our backgrounds, and we also share prosperity and peace and prosperity, and I have emphasized that we are partners in this matter. And also, we are beneficial to each other, and we are helping each other in many different areas, and we are the most appropriate partners to do this. And breaking away from what we have done, the actions that we have done in the past, we are going to open up the era of mutual cooperation and mutual survival. And together with Prime Minister Ishiba, we talked very candidly on many different topics, and the joint result document will be announced. And I believe that I was told that this is the first time that such thing is happening in 17 years. And with today's summit, the shuttle diplomacy had commenced, and this is that Republic of Korea and I believe that this shows that our bilateral relations has normalized without any official protocols. I hope that we can visit each other freely, and I hope that this will be the first step forward to this practice. Together with Prime Minister Ishiba, we talked about substantive steps that we will take, including North Korea and international orders and international issues. In economic front, hydrogen and AI and the areas where we can create synergy, we have talked about it for cooperation. In societal terms, the low birth rate, the aging society, and the concentration on the metropolitan areas and many more, we have agreed that we have such common issues, and therefore we are going to launch a consultative body to take care of these issues. And for our people-to-people relations, we have more than 12 million people, and to this end, we have agreed that that we are going to expand the working holiday program. For security, the complete denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula and peace and security on the Korean Peninsula. To this end, we have confirmed that we are going to cooperate to this end. And unwavering cooperation between two countries and amongst three countries, including the U.S., is very important. And we are going to make a virtuous cycle that will be the rock of cooperation. Together with Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, we have agreed that we're going to be closely cooperating for our bilateral ties and as well as ties with other countries and diplomatic ties with other countries. And for the peaceful region, I hope that this visit will be a cornerstone and it will be the first step towards the peaceful coexistence of the two countries and the people. Thank you. With this, we would like to end the joint conference. Thank you very much for your participation. For the media corps, please wait until the two heads of the countries leave.
Now, that was our live footage from Tokyo of the joint press conference between President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Now, for more on this, Dr. Kim, we just heard the President and the Prime Minister speak at the press conference. What are your assessment on this?
The press conference actually had several points that I found interesting. First, they are going to issue joint resolution, not joint statement or joint declaration. Joint resolution, I think, differs in its nature and content. So I think this is to accentuate their resolve to abide by the previous agreements and also their resolve to have better future between the two countries based on cooperation. So this is the first thing. The second thing about Prime Minister Ishida's remarks that I thought was interesting was not about what he said, but what he chose not to say. Silence about certain topics. When he mentioned about the 60th normalization of relations anniversary, which happens to fall on this year, he chose not to mention the 80th anniversary of Korea's independence. In the similar juncture, when he mentioned specific areas of cooperation between the two countries, he named security, economy, peace, and strategic communications. He didn't mention history. He chose not to mention history. This is consistent with Japanese government stance towards historical issues, which have been very sticky for Korea-Japan relations. So these two things he chose not to mention, I think, is interesting. And the third thing I found interesting was both leaders mentioned about domestic problems. Demographic changes because of aging population, declining birth rates, shrinking populations. These are the challenges both societies are facing. These are common challenges, but at the same time, when you think about it, these are domestic issues. It has very little to do with diplomacy. So I think both leaders are trying to accentuate the commonalities between the two by encompassing those domestic issues in order to create stronger sense of commiseration or challenges. And finally, both of them mentioned nuclear North Korea's threat to the regional security. Both of them seem to have strong consensus on the necessity and the impediment to deter nuclear North Korea. And this will eventually pave the smoother path to better conversation and dialogue with Washington by including and again accentuating the necessity for the alliance, trilateral alliance among the three allies. Okay, these are my observations.
Right, a lot of issues addressed there, and it's also important to think about, like you said, what Prime Minister Ishiba did not choose to mention, right?
Yes. We need to pay attention to not only what has been said, but also what has been chosen not to be talked about. And they are about history issues.
Right. And Professor Yeong, what about you? Could you share your insights on what we just heard at the press conference?
Yes, I do agree that they deliberately chose very safe expressions and the words to conclude their talk. Absolutely, their talks are more focused on the future and also the economic aspect. But I should conclude that this talk is very much taking up a very practical approach for their future and the current issues. And well, the most impressive thing, the word to me, is they emphasize, they use the trilateral time several times. So, I mean, that term very strongly implies that this talk is pre-step to enhance their tripartite communication and tripartite relationship. And also, both leaders have used the term strategic partnership and also security, economy, and peace. They also emphasize on the cooperation on international politics. They mentioned North Korea, and they declared to collaborate very hard to deter the North Koreans for a nuclear weapon, etc. So in sum, I think they talked about, I already talked about several possible agenda for the economic talks, such as the financial, the swaps, or whatever. And they chose 3 out of the 7 possible agendas. The first one is they declared to recover their normal economic relationship that has been significantly damaged in 2019. And number 2, they emphasized to enhance their cooperation in hydrogen and also ammonia, for the sake of the clean environment. And number 3, they emphasized to enhance their cooperation for people-to-people networks, such as the working holiday policies. So those 3 terms are very, very straightforward and very promising. But they did not mention any words about CPTPP, which is, as I mentioned, very, very sensitive, very political issues involved. So somehow they avoided some sensitive issues, but they delivered very safe messages to all the people.
Right, but it is very clear that they do want to develop their economic cooperation.
Exactly. And absolutely, the United States is one of the critical participants within this, the ties, international cooperation.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Kim, you mentioned that Prime Minister Ishiba chose to remain silent on historical issues, but it's not like those issues will just go away. Historical issues still remain as critical issues in bilateral relations. How do you think they will play out?
They're not going to go away because on the part of the people of Korea in particular, we still remember what has happened, and some of them seem to have some doubts about whether sense of justice has been delivered through various previous agreements. So these grievances over history will not go away, in particular on the part of Korean society. But this administration is trying to make it clear that it's not going to be the priority in terms of policy platform. So the emphasis will be on security, cooperation, and economic coordination over historical issues that have been lingering for like several decades. So I think both governments will try to calm the level of sentiments on the part of Korean society, while Japanese public in general, I think, seem to care less about what kind of wrongs were committed by their ancestors. So different levels of adjustment and different kinds of strategies to keep the calm on the surface over history-related issues.
Right, absolutely. And Professor Yeong, it seems that Korea and Japan today have agreed to build momentum on developing their economic cooperation, but it seems we will have to wait on what they will, discuss on the CPTPP issue, right?
Right, absolutely. That, as I already said, actually from those two leaders' talk, they have covered. We can sense that they have covered pretty comprehensive issues. They also talked about the societal issues, such as the people's aging and concentration into the metropolitan areas, etc. So to me, I mean, they have covered very diverse issues without being confined to economic matters, but also to enhance their mutual understanding for very diverse aspects, such as society, international, politics, or whatever. But again, they use very, very strong, the terminology such as partners, strategic relationship, trilateral. I mean, this is the first visit for the government overseas to Japan, and somehow they invited, the Washington and the United States for their talk. So we can sense that this is like a previous step, right, towards Washington to resolve and figure out their dilemmas and the problems about the tariffs, enhance their economic relationships. But what's the most important thing to me is they emphasize to enhance their regular consultative meetings. So they declared to launch the consultative bodies with the deputy ministers levels, whatever. And all these plans, all these talks, the approach to me that, and also they emphasize about 60th anniversary of their normal ties. So normalization, strategy, partners, prosperity, all these issues are about their future agenda, not just being confined and handicapped with their past histories. That is very, very promising and very challenging.
Right, we can clearly see that the two countries are off to a very good start in bilateral relations.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Yang, thank you so much for your insight today. And Dr. Kim, thank you so much for your time and your insight today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On that note, we end our special live coverage of President Lee Jae-myung summit with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Thank you for watching. Coming up is Arirang News. Stay tuned.